Alright guys, so this is part 9 of Camper 6.0 build, and we're going to start here in the garage and look at my huge piles of mess. There's some cedar shavings. This is a little cabinet that has, I try to mostly keep it to hardwoods and odd shapes of plywood that might be useful. Got some long strips of cedar that were ripped from some boards. Got some freshly planed boards ready for install, and this huge mess right here. I'm sure my wife loves that. But this brings up the main topic for today, and that is the use of recycled or repurposed material, in my case primarily wood, in your builds. And I think it provides a lot of neat opportunities. It has the potential to save some money and has the potential to make some very unique uses of stuff that you'd otherwise throw away. I'm not a huge environmentalist in the traditional sense, but I always do enjoy reusing material that would otherwise be thrown away. So here's the interior. Let me see if I can get another view that might be a little better here. Actually, wide's about as good as we can get. So compared to last time, you guys can see we've made a lot of progress. And I'm going to show you where I've used some recycled material here shortly, but let me just kind of catch you up. So as of last week, you guys, or the last update, so for part 8, the cabinets up here were not in. So those have since been constructed and installed. And again, a little disclaimer on the interior, guys, here. Remember, it's a little dirty, a little dusty. There's always some little things that I am correcting, so don't judge too specifically. But these little cabinets, I was very pleased with them. It's kind of funny, the things that take a long time. All this trim around the edges, I think I spent more time building the trim than I did the actual cabinets. But I was really pleased with how these turned out. For a camper of this size, they're actually quite large. I actually angst quite a bit about the size that these would be. These are about 10 inches deep because I didn't want it to kind of crowd it in and make it look too well crowded in here, but I also wanted to balance that with usefulness, and I think I'm pretty happy. I think I struck a real nice balance. Let's step back. It still looks real open and airy in here, which is what I like, but there you guys can kind of get a sense. But these cabinets, they will have a door, of course, at some point. They'll provide a lot of really meaningful, you can kind of get a sense for how far back my hand goes in here. Those would be very helpful. And then probably one of the most notable things here is you guys can see that I've started the rough construction of what will be the kind of the kitchen area there. So I know I've talked about it a couple times. So this will be set up a lot like 5.0, have a drawer, and then up in this section, so that dead space there will be a pull-out working top. Down there will be storage, and I'll have a door in it, of course. Real significant, pretty sizable storage down there. I'll be able to put a ton of stuff down in there. We've got the sink in there. Now this countertop and the sink is not fully mounted. I just kind of have it positioned in there now. This corner right here will be a cabinet. I'm still trying to make up my mind, but I'm thinking I will just make it basically just kind of an angle from one side to another, which will be roughly about a 45-degree, and then it will go from the countertop up. Maybe not the most sizable cabinet, but considering how long it is compared to the last ones, I think it will provide enough space. And over here, I am now just in the process of boxing out and finishing up what would be the cabinet space around the AC. So you guys can see I finished up the box around it. And there will be a little shelf above there, and then there will be vertical planks all down that side. And then this will be boxed in with a little door roughly about right here. Just like 5.0, that will be some storage. So this camper is going to turn out to have quite a bit of storage. We've got the 2 overhead cabinets. We'll have pretty sizable storage underneath the AC unit, and I'm actually making this a little bit bigger mostly side to side than it was in 5.0, and that actually turned out to be a really big storage area. Little shelf up there, floor to countertop, or ceiling to countertop storage there. Another cabinet here. There'll probably be a little shelf right there, and a lot of storage here. Nice big drawer here. Underneath will probably be a little less storage. Water will sit underneath there. That's actually a new kit I got. Well, we aren't going to talk about it here, but I'll do another video, and I think a lot of you guys will really enjoy that. Anyways, but water will be stored underneath here. I haven't even began working on it yet, but the electrical system will all reside underneath here. The battery, the inverter, so forth. Toilet like usual. So the only open storage underneath here might be just a little bit in the back, which would be hard to access, but nonetheless, working out pretty good. But back to the main title of this and the use of recycled or reusable, or reusing scrap and other parts. Well, see this countertop right here, guys? This is all what would have otherwise been scrap that would be thrown away. Now, I'll tell you the story on this. I thought this turned out really nice. Now, I need to put one more coat of finish on it, or one more coat of poly, so it's not perfect. But these two edges on the back side and then right here are actually all primarily scrap cedar. So when you're making a camper like this with all the cedar on the outside and cedar on the inside, you ultimately inevitably end up with a bunch of little pieces of cedar. And I throw away a lot of it. There's no way of getting around it. But I did save some of them and cut it to about 1.5 inches thickness. And it was actually my wife who did it. She laminated all these together. Now, as you guys see, I did add in a couple little bits and pieces just to add some aesthetic flair here. So this is actually the edge grain of a piece of plywood. There's a little bit of oak and poplar in there, and laminated these together. And then these center sections, I bought a old table saw from a guy who was closing up some sort of woodworking shop, and he just gave me these very old pieces of butcher block. Now, they were really rough shape, they were irregular sized. I mean, there was really not much I was going to be able to do with them as singular parts, but I got putting together this countertop here, and I realized, you know what, I could probably fit those in the middle. I used some scrap cherry that I had to form just a kind of a decorative perpendicular line there, and laminated it all together and produced what I think is a very beautiful countertop. Like I said, I got to put one more finished poly on there, so it's not perfect. But this was all essentially reused, or if you want to use a word, recycled materials that otherwise I would have just ended up in the trash heap. So I love putting it together. Here's another example, less beautiful, but it's functional. This entire drawer right here, and I'm going to paint it, this is just rough right now, is all made out of pieces of 1/4 inch ply that were laminated together or glued together. Obviously, I had a lot of 1/4 inch ply left over from other builds, most specifically 5.0, and the substructure build on this particular camper. And I took all that plywood and just essentially glued it all together in very unique ways that benefited, and made this entire drawer, whereas I would have otherwise had to cut into a fresh piece of plywood. So this was a nice piece of scrap material. I got some of the scrap out of my garage and made a really strong and sturdy drawer with what otherwise would have required me to cut into a fresh piece of plywood, which I hate to do unless I absolutely have to. Up here, this top piece, same thing. I laminated together a bunch of that 1/4 inch ply that I would have otherwise thrown away, and put that together. Now, a lot of these strategies I'm using in here to reuse or recycle otherwise scrap material is really best suited for somebody like me, a DIYer, which is probably a lot of you out there who have more time than money. It's not something that is time efficient in terms of if you were building something on an industrial scale like a cabinet shop or so forth. But for me, where these builds are more than just the structure it is, but real representation of your time, and I develop a real strong connection to these builds. It always brings a little warmth to my heart to come in and see things that were made from stuff that otherwise would be thrown away. So just a little food for thought, guys. And then as usual, it's kind of an update on the build. I've said this 2 weeks ago. I'm hoping to finish up the interior build here in the coming weeks. But I'm just taking my time. I'm enjoying the process, and everything is going together well, and I'm very happy. So one final thing I will talk about is the last video I did the gas mileage comparison between 5.0 and 6.0, and as many of you guys saw, the gas mileage was essentially or largely the same between both. I will admit now, this camper has been on the truck now about 2 weeks, and I've gotten an opportunity to fill it up a couple times, as I had with 5.0, and I am actually thinking that I'm getting slightly better gas mileage with this camper 6.0, than I was at 5.0 when I look at the bigger numbers of calculating gas mileage. Keep in mind that that test I did was short, and there was some real practical reasons for it, but it was also a test that was under absolutely ideal circumstances. Real world driving, and involves a lot of city, street driving. It involves dealing with wind and hills, especially out here in the West, and things like that. So I had a pretty good bead on, I'll call it functional miles per gallon, that I had on 5.0 because I'd been on the truck for some time, and I'm starting to get a sense for the bead of the functional gas mileage on this truck. And keep in mind, that's different than ideal scenarios of primarily freeway driving. And I actually do tend to be getting about an additional mile per gallon of functional miles per gallon, or MPG, with camper 6.0 over 5.0. I don't want to, I'm still kind of testing that and evaluating it before I come out and actually say it is better, but my initial couple fill-ups seem to be that I am getting a little bit better gas mileage, so that makes me a little happy. I was a little bummed that put all that work into the aerodynamics just to get essentially the same gas mileage, but it does seem to be a little better. So hope you guys are all doing well. I'll cut it off here. Let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you guys later.